Imagine it's 1960 and you're watching the first ever televised presidential debate. The debate pit John F. Kennedy, then a Democratic senator from Massachusetts, against Richard M. Nixon, the incumbent vice president. One of the most notable aspects of the debate was the contrast in appearance and demeanor between the candidates. Kennedy appeared calm, confident, and telegenic. In contrast, Nixon, who had just been hospitalized for a knee surgery and was still recovering, looked tired and underweight. He refused makeup and appeared pale and sweaty under the harsh studio lights. The debate truly highlighted the power of television in shaping public opinion and the relative level of media savvy of the two candidates. Voters who listened to the debate on the radio generally thought that Nixon had won or that it had been a draw. However, the larger television audience believed Kennedy was the clear winner, due in part to his more confident and comfortable presence on screen. And because an estimated 70 million people, approximately 40% of the total U.S. population at the time, tuned in to watch it live, the debate gave Kennedy a powerful boost, helping him raise a national profile and ultimately propelling him to the White House. Let's listen in for just a moment.
Smith, Senator Kennedy. First of all, I think it is well to put in perspective where we really do stand with regard to the Soviet Union in this whole matter of growth. The Soviet Union has been moving faster than we have. But the reason for that is obvious. They start from a much lower base. Although they have been moving faster in growth than we have, we find, for example, today, that their total gross national product is only 44% of our total gross national product. That's the same percentage that it was 20 years ago. And as far as the absolute gap is concerned, we find that the United States is even further ahead than it was 20 years ago. Is this any reason for complacency? Not at all. Because these are determined men. They are fanatical men. And we have to get the very most out of our economy. I agree with Senator Kennedy completely on that scope. Where we disagree is in the means that we would use to get the most out of our economy. I respectfully submit that Senator Kennedy too often would rely too much on the federal government, on what it would do to solve our problems, to stimulate growth. I believe that when we examine the Democratic platform, when we examine the proposals that he has discussed tonight, when we compare them with the proposals that I have made, that these proposals that he makes would not result in greater growth for this country than would be the case if we followed the programs that I have advocated.
Senator Kennedy, your conclusion?
The point was made by Mr. Nixon that the Soviet production is only 44% of ours. I must say that 44% in that Soviet country is causing us a good deal of trouble tonight. I want to make sure that it stays in that relationship. I don't want to see the day when it's 60% of ours and 70 and 75 and 80 and 90% of ours, with all the force and power that it could bring to bear in order to cause our destruction. I think the question before the American people is, as they look at this country and as they look at the world around them, the goals are the same for all Americans. The means are at question. The means are at issue. If you feel that everything that is being done now is satisfactory, that the relative power and prestige and strength of the United States is increasing in relation to that of the communists, that we are gaining more security, that we are achieving everything as a nation that we should achieve, that we're achieving a better life for our citizens and greater strength, then I agree. I think you should vote for Mr. Nixon. But if you feel that we have to move again in the 60s, that the function of the president is to set before the people the unfinished business of our society, as Franklin Roosevelt did in the 30s, the agenda for our people, what we must do as a society to meet our needs in this country and protect our security and help the cause of freedom. As I said at the beginning, the question before us all, that faces all Republicans and all Democrats, is, can freedom in the next generation conquer, or are the communists going to be successful? That's the great issue. And if we meet our responsibilities, I think freedom will conquer. If we fail to move ahead, if we fail to develop sufficient military and economic and social strength here in this country, then I think that the tide could begin to run against us. And I don't want historians 10 years from now to say, these were the years when the tide ran out for the United States. I want them to say, these were the years when the tide came in. These were the years when the United States started to move again. That's the question before the American people, and only you can decide what you want this country to be, what you want to do with the future. I think we're ready to move. And it is to that great task, if we're successful, that we will address ourselves.
The 1960s debates changed the way presidential campaigns were run, highlighting the importance of image and televised appearances. They also paved the way for debates to become a regular feature in presidential elections, offering a platform for candidates to engage directly with each other and the public. And they underscored the importance of media savvy in modern political campaigns. But even beyond the televised presidential debates, the media play a critical role in politics today, influencing public perceptions and the political agenda in a variety of ways. At the most basic level, the news media play a critical role in keeping the public informed, providing the necessary information for the public to know and understand the activities of the government and the issues facing the country. But this role encompasses several more specific functions. First, the media plays an important agenda-setting role, influencing which topics are on the public agenda. If a news item is covered more frequently and prominently, the audience will regard the issue as more important. Agenda setting can even shape the public perception about what issues are important in the first place. For example, extensive coverage of healthcare issues might lead the public to prioritize healthcare as a key political issue. The flip side of this function is called gatekeeping. There's a vast array of potential information and news events occurring every day, but which ones should the media focus on and which should they ignore? The decision about which events to cover and by extension which to ignore is called gatekeeping. And this gatekeeping feature can affect public knowledge and discourse as only certain topics and perspectives are highlighted while others are marginalized. And beyond what the media covers, how it covers those stories also matters. The media plays a central role in framing stories, providing context and perspective, and thereby influencing how audiences understand and interpret the issue. For example, a tax policy can be framed as a burden on the middle class or as a necessary step for social welfare, leading to different public responses. And different media outlets will frame similar stories in very different ways. Think about how MSNBC and Fox News cover the actions of President Trump and President Biden differently, and you get a sense of the framing effect. Finally, the media often acts as a watchdog by investigating and reporting on government malpractice, corruption, and policy failures. This role is crucial in a democracy as it helps hold public officials accountable and informs the citizens about government misdeeds. The media's influence through these often overlapping mechanisms is profound, shaping not just public perception of issues, but also the political agenda itself, influencing what issues are discussed and how they are discussed, and the public's engagement with them. But despite the important roles played by the media in a democratic polis, trust in media in the United States in particular has steadily declined over time. Gallup poll regularly asks Americans the question, in general, how much trust and confidence do you have in the mass media when it comes to reporting the news fully, accurately, and fairly? Since they started polling the question in 1972, those saying they trust the news media a great deal or a fair amount has declined from about 70% of the population to about 34% of the population today. By contrast, those saying they have not very much or no trust at all has roughly doubled, increasing from about 30% in 1972 to about 66% today. The decline is less pronounced for Democrats than for Republicans, whose trust in media has declined from about 68% expressing a great deal or a fair amount of trust in the media in 1972 to just 11% trusting the media in 2023. Democratic trust has also declined, albeit at a much slower rate. The decline in trust in the media in the United States over time is a complex issue that's been influenced by various factors. Perhaps the most important of these is political polarization. As the American political landscape has become increasingly polarized, so too has the perception of the media. Different political groups often accuse media outlets of bias, whether it be liberal or conservative. This polarization has led to growing distrust in media sources that are perceived as being aligned with the opposing political side. This polarization has been reinforced by the emergence of overtly partisan media outlets, particularly in cable news and in online platforms. These outlets, like Fox News on the left and MSNBC on the right, often present news with a clear political slant, catering to the specific ideological audiences they serve. This can reinforce existing biases and lead to skepticism about the impartiality of news sources. The rise of social media has dramatically changed how news is consumed and shared, exacerbating this partisan effect. The algorithms that drive social media platforms often create echo chambers where users are predominantly exposed to viewpoints that they already agree with. This can lead to a lack of exposure to diverse perspectives and contribute to mistrust in media sources that present conflicting information. Many media outlets, in an effort to attract viewers or readers in a highly competitive market, resort to sensationalism or infotainment. This approach often prioritizes entertainment value or shock value over in-depth analysis and factual reporting, leading to skepticism about the seriousness and accuracy of their news. It's also blurred the traditional division between news and opinion reporting. The shift away from traditional news sources has created an opening for a significant increase in the spread of misinformation and disinformation. The ease with which false information can be spread online, often without adequate fact-checking, has led to a general skepticism about the reliability of news sources. How exactly people understand media bias depends largely on where they fall on the political spectrum. Individuals with left-leaning views often frame media bias in the form of corporate influence, underrepresentation of progressive viewpoints, and a lack of focus on issues like income inequality, climate change, and social justice. They argue that mainstream media frequently caters to corporate interests due to ownership and advertising pressures, and maintains the status quo, thereby neglecting progressive policies and movements. In support of their position, progressives point to the failure of the major news networks to cover issues like labor rights or environmental activism, and their focus on business reporting and the stock market instead. Those on the right often perceive a liberal bias in the mainstream media, maintaining that the media disproportionately represents the liberal viewpoints and marginalizes conservative opinions. They argue that the media negatively portrays conservative policies and politicians, demonstrates bias in reporting on social issues, and undermines traditional values. In support of their position, conservatives often point to the coverage of political issues like immigration, gun rights, and taxation, claiming that mainstream media outlets have a liberal slant in their reporting and commentary. Finally, centrists or moderates also perceive a problem of media bias. From their perspective, the media is often a polarizing force that amplifies extreme viewpoints at both ends of the political spectrum, artificially creating two sides of a debate and neglecting balanced or unbiased reporting. Centrists worry that this polarization contributes to a divisive political climate and a misinformed public, as media outlets cater to specific ideological audiences for commercial or political reasons. In support of their position, moderates point to a tendency of both left-leaning and right-leaning media outlets to engage in sensationalism, failing to provide truly balanced coverage and focusing more on opinion than factual reporting. But that's it for now. Please leave any questions you have in the comments section below, and thanks for watching. Bye.